During a recent conversation with The Times, Ozzy Osbourne admitted he's not really into working with his Black Sabbath bandmate, guitarist Tony Iommi. The singer explained, via Blabbermouth. "Do I like working with him? Not really. Do I like him as a person? Yeah, I love him as a person. But if people was to say to me, was there a leader of Black Sabbath? I'd have to say it was Tony Iommi. Because without his guitar riffs, we'd be still sitting in fucking rehearsal with our thumbs up our asses going, what do we do now?" Osbourne added he has moved on from Sabbath, saying about the band's farewell tour. "I'll tell you what it was like. It's like when you're younger and you met a girl, Susie, and you break up and you don't see her for 30 years. Then she's in town and you go, oh, I'll give Susie a call, because your memory only remembers the good parts and you can narrow it then to a week and you go, I remember that week and it was lovely. But then you go back and you go, I forgot the fucking 4¾ years I was fucking miserable." Ozzy went on to describe his ongoing solo tour as great fun, adding, "I'm in control and it's so much better. I get more pleasure out of doing the gigs now." 5 things you didn't know about Metallica's Black Album. 1. Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammet and Jason Newsted were all going through divorces during the making of the Black Album. The personal lives of 3 of the 4 Metallica members were in deep disarray as they set upon writing and recording what would prove to be the group's breakthrough album, and that darkness and chaos may have crept into the resulting music. "Lars, Jason and I were going through divorces," Hammet revealed to Playboy. "I was an emotional wreck. I was trying to take those feeling of guilt and failure and channel them into the music, to get something positive out of it. Jason and Lars were, too, and I think that has a lot to do with why the Black Album sounds the way it does." 2. Nothing Else Matters was not intended to be a Metallica song or to be played for other people. It was a song written in hotel rooms on Justice tour about missing friends at home, being out for such a long time, Hetfield told Jeff Woods in 2016. "That was a song that was not meant to be played for other people, it was for me. I think that's important, to write music that makes you feel good. I've got quite a few songs that are like that." Nothing Else Matters was heard by the band, they thought it was amazing. "I though, you were crazy. That's just this sappy ballady thing that makes me feel okay. No, that's good." 3. Sad But True was originally written in a higher key and, as a result, wasn't nearly as crushingly heavy. When Rock heard the demo for Sad But True, he thought it was the Kashmir of the 90s, referencing the classic Led Zeppelin song. "The riff was astounding," he said to Guitar World. "Rhythmically, I could tell it had the potential to be absolutely crushing. Then, while in pre-production, he noticed that all the songs that band has brought in, including Sad But True, were in the key of E. I brought this to the band's attention, and they said, well, isn't E the lowest note?" Rock recalled. "So I told them that on Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, which I produced and Metallica loved, the band had tuned down to D. Metallica then tuned down to D, and that's when the riff really became huge. It was this force that you just couldn't stop, no matter what." 4. The guitar solo on Enter Sandman was inspired, in part, by a sample on an Ice-T album. "I think the time has come to reveal where I actually got the guitar lick before the breakdown in Enter Sandman," Hammet told Guitar World. "It's from Magic Man, by Heart, but I didn't get it from Heart's version. I got it from a cut-off Ice-T's Power album, where he sampled it. I heard that and thought, I have to snake this." 5. Ulrich came up with the idea of going very stark and simple with the cover art as a reaction against standard, cartoonish metal imagery. According to the book Enter Night, a biography of Metallica, Ulrich was struck with the initial guiding vision for the Black Album's cover art early in the recording process. Author Mick Wall writes that the drummer was browsing through a typically colorful heavy metal mag, noticing how the ads for various albums all looked the same, when he realized Metallica had to do something different, Ultimate Classic Rock pointed out. "All these cartoon characters and all this steel and blood and guts," Ulrich said to Wall. "It was like, let's get as far away as possible from this." The resulting all-black cover certainly made a statement, which Hetfield expressed succinctly as, "Here it is, black sleeve, black logo, fuck you." Kirk Hammett remembered the time he joined Metallica back in '83, telling Matt Pinfield. "When it came time for Metallica to leave California and go to New Jersey to make an album, everyone in the scene knew they were gonna be the very first band from the scene to actually go in a studio and make a record. Everyone bid them farewell, there was a huge party for them, and that was it, they left. Literally 4 or 5 days later, I got a phone call from Metallica's sound person, who also happened to be Exodus manager at the time. And he says, "Hey Kirk, these guys are not having a good time with Dave Mustaine. There are some problems with him personally. They want to start looking for other guitar players. I played them the Exodus demo and they liked what they heard. So they're interested in trying you out. I'm gonna send you the No Life Till Leather demo." I said, "I already have it. Learn the songs. I already know a few of the songs." "Great, learn the rest of them." 5 days later, I was on a plane from San Francisco to New York, and check this out. Back then, you were able to check in a Marshall cabinet at a Marshall head into luggage. I'll never forget it. Mark Whitaker and Cliff Burton came to pick me up at the airport. It was them because James and Lars were too busy sleeping. I set up my amp and they were shaking the sleep out of their eyes going, "What songs do you know?" I said, "I think I know all of them." The first song we played was Seek and Destroy. We started playing it and it was really confusing for me cause James and Lars kept looking at each other and laughing. I couldn't figure out why they were laughing. Am I playing the song wrong or something? After the song, they're looking at me like, "Okay, what other stuff do you know?" We eventually cycled through all the songs and they went, "Great, we're gonna rehearse a few more times, we have a show on Friday, do you think you can do it?" I said, "Yeah, I think I can do it." And that was that. Metallica's Kirk Hammett described his experience of jamming with Meshuggah as amazingly powerful, but also shared his thoughts on the band, saying that they are so unique. Hammett joined the band on stage as part of his annual horror-themed Fear Festival music and memorabilia event a few years back. This is what he said when speaking with SiriusXM's Liquid Metal. "I could feel the power behind me. And I was thinking about it, and it was kind of like being in front of a locomotive. And the only way to, keep in front of that locomotive is to just play my ass off and keep up with it. It was amazingly powerful and an amazing experience. I have to say, I've jammed with a lot of people and I've jammed with a lot of bands, but that was so unique and next level." He went on to note that the experience of playing under Meshuggah's extensive lighting rig was trippy. Their stage show is trippy, because they have lights, a lot of lights, and you can barely see those guys. So when I walked on stage, it was so dark on stage, I could barely see my guitar neck, but, for some reason, somehow, someway, that kind of added to the overall vibe. I just have to say, man. It was the first time I really sat and watched them for more than 10 minutes, cause that's usually all the time I have. And I have to say, they're one of the best metal bands out there for a variety of reasons, man. In terms of technique and virtuosity, in terms of originality, there's no precedent before Meshuggah. They have set a precedent, and they are so unique. It's almost Dada-esque. I know I'm using a lot of big 50-cent words here, but it's the only way I can really explain how I think and how I feel about them.
On Vancouver radio station CFOX, Metallica's Kirk Hammett spoke fairly candidly about his experience taking guitar lessons with Joe Satriani. It was actually very poignant. Hammett said of his first lesson with Satriani, "His first lesson to me was, learn your lesson. Don't waste your time, don't waste my time. I expect you to know everything that I gave you in a week's time." I was like, this guy is serious. But you know what? I did it, and he kicked my ass. But after a while, I was taking 2 lessons a week from him. I became so thirsty for what he had to offer me, I was just like, bring it on. It's all making sense. I want to learn more. Hammett then discussed Satriani as a player, saying ever since I first met him, he's always played incredibly, with all the sounds and all the bar stuff and tapping and crazy licks that no one's ever played and still probably never plays. I mean, he's just such a unique individual as a musician. Dave Mustaine shared his thoughts on Meshuggah after getting to hear the band a bit more often during ongoing joint tour with Megadeth, telling Cat Rock, "They're really exciting. It's not even because the drumming is so complicated, really it's just 4/4 timing the majority of the time. But the way the songs are, and how unique they are, they take on a characteristic of their own. You could so easily get lost trying to follow. What do they call that? Algebra metal or something like that? All these timings and stuff like that. You know, the stuff I listened to growing up, the new wave of British heavy metal. It was straightforward riffing like AC/DC. And then going into Priest and Maiden, and then getting into heavier stuff, Motorhead, Diamond Head, Merciful Fate, everything was straightforward. So having a tour with Megadeth, Meshuggah, Tesseract, and Lil Lake where we have these young exciting bands. It's always really entertaining because I get to see stuff I never would have been compelled to pick up in a record store. It opens my mind a lot. I remember the first time I took out this really great band called the Dillinger Escape Plan. I couldn't understand it, but I just knew they were really exciting. It's the stuff you don't understand you most often miss out on. I wanted to understand, so we took them out on Gigantor. It was a great experience. I thought they were terrific. And that was my introduction to that type of crazy, cerebral metal. He also talked about drummer Dirk Verburen, saying, as good as Adler was, Dirk's feet are more advanced. I didn't think that was possible, because Chris is such a great drummer. There's a reason why Chris recommended Dirk, and I love him for that. I think that he's a really solid friend for making that recommendation, cause a lot of guys wouldn't do that. He's a true friend, and I was stoked having him in the studio. Dirk is one of the most pleasant, easy to get along with guys I've ever met in my life. I'll walk up to him, and he'll smile, and lean forward, and pat me on the back. He goes, "How's it going, buddy?" I could say, "Oh man, anything." "Oh, okay buddy." He smiles and pats me, cause he's just a happy guy.
In an old interview from a 1994 Guitar World article, Yngwie Malmsteen was asked to do a blind critique of some of the bands and guitar players of the time. Yngwie gets played Metallica's song Master of Puppets. He has great things to say about the band except for the guitarist, Kirk Hammet. This is what he said. "That's Metallica, I love it. This is maybe the second or third time I've heard this song, and the first time I've heard the live version. My old drummer and keyboardist liked Metallica a lot, and they played this song around the time I was recording Odyssey, 1988. I liked it then and I like it now. Of all the bands that play this type of music, Metallica is the best. James Hetfield sings better than all the other vocalists, and Lars Ulrich is a great drummer. I feel some sort of connection with them. I think the band heard some of my early demos, which sounded something like this." Malmsteen demos first surfaced on college radio stations in Northern California, where Metallica is based. I'm not saying I influenced them, but maybe I did. Overall, the band has a great sound. But I think the lead guitar player, Kirk Hammett, is not very good. He can play fast and is pretty good at it. But his choice of notes and sense of pitch are very bad. I don't think that he plays with musicality, or plays in tune. Rather than lifting the song, his solo seems to be the anticlimax. Would you agree or disagree with Yngwie Malmsteen? What's your opinion on Kirk Hammett's guitar playing? Tell us in the comments section down below. Back in 2014, neoclassical guitar virtuoso Yngwie Malmsteen gave an interesting yet controversial opinion on Ibanez guitars. In an interview he was asked what it was about the Stratocaster that has kept him so devoted to it all these years. He replied saying, "Well, it's kind of the original instrument, everything else is a copy of it, you know. All the Ibanez and stuff like that's just a copy. It's like a bad copy, really. It's the same design but it's a bad copy. I'm an original, very purist kinda guy," he added. "That's why I use Marshalls, Ferraris, whatever. I like the original stuff." He also said some interesting things about Gibson guitars. "Yeah, Les Paul's nice being a piece of furniture, it's nice to look at. But it wouldn't survive 5 minutes with me on stage. What do you think about this? Are Ibanez guitars really bad copies of the original Fender Strat? And what do you think he is trying to say about Gibson? Comment your thoughts and opinions down below."
Neoclassical guitar master Yngwie Malmsteen goes through his top 5 tips for guitarists. 1. Learn from the best. Just like you, I had heroes as a kid. I got the first Deep Purple album and started figuring out how to do the whole Ritchie Blackmore thing. To be honest, I got pretty damn close. And then I soon realized he already exists, so I really should do something that sounds like me. It's a really good thing to emulate someone in order to learn your trade. I actually think it's very important. But eventually, you might want to go somewhere else with it, and that's up to each and every individual. 2. Knowledge is power. You're going to laugh at this, I only play with my ears. I don't think about technique or scales or anything. I just think about what I sound like. I grew up in a very musical family and I knew how important it was to know all the theory. You might think it's boring, but you have to learn the relationships between all the scales, keys and notes in order to know what you can and can't do. Say Phrygian and diminished, they're all connected. A harmonic minor is also E Phrygian dominant, but you could play diminished from F sharp every 3 frets, and you'll bring that flavor. It all becomes hardwired, and you soon stop thinking about it. 3. Open every door. When you play blues, you go into a certain mode, you know. The groundwork isn't actually that hard, it's all mathematical theory. You have the key to this door, and when you open it, there's a hallway with 100 other doors. Behind those doors are more doors, and it keeps going on. But you need the key to open that first door. Once you have that, you don't need to worry anymore. That's how you become an amazing improviser, and I feel that improvisation is one of the most important things to be a musician. All the great composers were great improvisers, they wrote it all down because they had to. That all comes down to knowing the theory. It's how you stay in the right place and never head anywhere you're not supposed to be. 4. Express yourself clearly. When I first came on this scene, way back when, people always used to say 2 things. Hey man, I can't believe you have no distortion on your guitar. And I have more gain on my shit than you could imagine, insane levels of it. I just make sure each note is clearly expressed. You do one, and then you move on to the next. Don't let them bleed into each other. The other thing people used to say is, you pick every note. I don't pick every note. If I did that, with the amount of gain I use, it would sound crazy. But it's not all legato either, there's no real system to it. I could pick every note if I wanted to, and sometimes do, if it's the sound I'm looking for. My solos sound like mini compositions. Some guitar players do repetitive things really fast, and I always felt that there should be a melody behind it, even if it's fast. People also used to say, wow, I can't believe how you wrote that solo. And I didn't write that solo, it was never written. Roll the tape, and off I go. It's completely improvised, even on the records. If there's a catchy phrase, sure I will use it, but more often than not, I play something a bit different. 5. Listen to the other instruments. I think since the late 50s, guitar players spend all their time in the bedroom listening to other guitar players. It went from Muddy Waters to Chuck Berry to Hank Marvin to Jimi Hendrix to Pete Townshend to Eddie Van Halen and so on. They were all fucking amazing. I love them, but they all had that in common with the exception of one, Alan Holdsworth, who took his lines from saxophones. I became infatuated with the classical violin that ended up being my inspiration. It's a strange thing to say, because I've been on the road with Steve Vai and all those guys a few times. We've spent a lot of time together, and I've really gotten to know how they think, and they all have that in common, they love other guitar players. I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying it's something I see more often than not. You may run the risk of having slightly less identity, but I wouldn't want to knock anyone for that. I understand how it feels. When I was a kid, I wanted to be like Blackmore because he was cool, but it's important for me to feel like I'm doing my own thing.